It was almost 1 in the morning when Mark realized the house wasn't quiet anymore. The clinking of dishes came from the kitchen, faint but steady, like a rhythm he'd known for years. At first, he thought he'd dreamed it, the kind of dream that clings to the edge of sleep. Then he heard the low hum that followed, the same tune she always used to hum when she washed up after dinner. His hand moved across the sheets automatically, searching for the warmth that wasn't there. The space beside him was cold. It had been cold for 3 weeks. He rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling. The sound of water running grew louder, a soft Russian splash as if someone were rinsing dishes under the tap. He thought of the pile of plates from earlier that evening. He hadn't touched them. Since the funeral, he'd been letting things slide, laundry, dishes, even the mail stacking on the counter. Maybe he'd gotten up and started cleaning without realizing it. People did strange things when they were half asleep. Then a small whisper came from the doorway. "Daddy." He turned his head. His son, Noah, stood in the hall, clutching the blanket around his shoulders. The boy's hair stuck up in every direction. His eyes were wide and wet in the dim light. "What are you doing up?" Mark asked softly. Noah's voice trembled. "She's still here." Mark pushed himself upright, the fog of sleep lifting all at once. "Who's here, buddy?" "Mommy." The word hung between them, too heavy for the narrow space. Mark swallowed hard, trying to sound calm. "You mean you dreamed about Mommy?" Noah shook his head. "No. She's in the kitchen." Mark felt something in his chest twist. The air seemed to thicken. "Stay here," he said, swinging his legs out of bed. The floor was cold against his bare feet. He crossed the hallway, each step quiet but deliberate. The humming was still there. He could make out the tune now, a simple lullaby she'd used to sing to Noah when he was a baby. It wound through the air like something alive. When he reached the kitchen doorway, he paused. The light above the sink was on. Water streamed from the faucet, running over a stack of plates. The window above the sink reflected the room, empty except for him. The humming stopped. Mark turned off the faucet. The sudden silence rang in his ears. For a moment he stood there, waiting for something to move, for a shadow to shift. Nothing did. The dishes gleamed under the light, freshly washed and neatly stacked. He hadn't washed them. A tremor ran through him. He wiped his hands on his pajama pants and forced a breath out through his nose. "It's just fatigue," he whispered. "I'm tired, that's all." Behind him, the floor creaked. He spun around, but there was no one. He waited, every muscle tense, until Noah's small voice broke the silence again. "Daddy, is she gone?" Mark exhaled and walked back to the hallway, crouching to meet his son's eyes. "There's no one in the kitchen, Noah. Mommy's not there." But she was. He wanted to tell the boy that ghosts weren't real, that what they both needed was sleep. But the words wouldn't come easily. He picked Noah up, carried him back to bed, and tucked the blanket under his chin. "Try to sleep," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." When he went back to his room, the sheets were cold again. He lay awake until dawn, listening to the house settle around him. The next day, sunlight poured through the kitchen window, bright and ordinary. The dishes were still clean. Mark tried to shake the memory, telling himself he'd washed them without remembering. Grief did strange things to memory. Noah was quiet over breakfast. He pushed his cereal around the bowl, eyes on the table. "Did you sleep okay?" Mark asked. The boy shrugged. "I heard her." Again. Mark froze with his coffee halfway to his mouth. "When?" "Before the sun came up. She said my name." He set the mug down carefully. "You probably dreamed it." Noah didn't answer. After a moment, he got up and went to the living room, curling on the couch with his stuffed bear. Mark rubbed his temples. He had work emails piling up, bills that needed paying, and now this, his son talking to shadows. He told himself it was temporary. Kids didn't understand death the same way adults did. They expected people to come back. That afternoon, while Noah napped, Mark sorted through a box of his wife's things. Her handwriting on the labels felt like a small cut each time he saw it. Summer clothes, kitchen towels, old photos. He opened one box at random and found a stack of notebooks. Her journals. He hesitated, then closed the lid again. Reading them felt like trespassing. The rest of the day passed quietly. As dusk fell, Mark reheated some leftover pasta, coaxed Noah to eat, and read him a story. By 9, the house was dark except for the soft glow of the hallway light. He almost believed it would be a normal night. until he heard the humming again. This time it was softer, like it was coming from inside the walls. Mark sat up in bed, heart pounding. He glanced at the digital clock, 12:47 a.m. He swung his legs over the side and listened. The sound was moving, drifting toward the living room. He stood, every instinct telling him not to go, but he did anyway. The air in the hallway felt colder than it should have. He passed Noah's door and heard the boy's steady breathing. The living room was dark except for the faint orange glow of the streetlight through the curtains. Something moved near the couch, a flicker of white fabric, gone as soon as he focused on it. "Lisa," he said before he could stop himself. Silence. He took another step forward. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, the kind she used to wear when they went out. He felt dizzy for a moment, like he was stepping into a memory. The humming started again, closer now, just behind him. He turned sharply, but there was nothing there. Only the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Mark backed away until his legs hit the couch. He sat down heavily, pressing his palms over his face. "Get a grip," he muttered. In the morning, he'd convince himself it was just exhaustion, the mind's cruel trick. But when he looked up, Noah was standing in the doorway again. "She was here," the boy said simply. Mark didn't ask how he knew. He just nodded and said, "Go back to bed." After that night, the humming became a regular visitor. Sometimes it came from the kitchen, sometimes the hall. Once, Mark woke to the smell of coffee brewing and found the machine on, half a pot already made. He stood there staring at it, trying to remember pressing the button. At first he kept the events to himself. But when Noah began leaving drawings around the house, crayon pictures of their family, always with the mother colored in gray, Mark felt a creeping sense that something was binding them to a place they no longer understood. He started sleeping in bursts, short, restless hours punctuated by dreams of water and glass. In one dream, he stood at the sink with his hands submerged, the water rising higher until it spilled over the counter and onto the floor. His wife's reflection appeared in the window, smiling gently. "It's all right," she whispered. "You don't have to clean up anymore." He woke drenched in sweat, the sheets twisted around him. Days blurred together. The house seemed to hold its breath. Mark tried to stay busy, fixing the leaky faucet, cleaning, cooking, but he felt watched, the way one feels when a television is left on in an empty room. One evening, he decided he couldn't take it anymore. He went to the basement to fetch a box, planning to pack away the rest of her things. The basement smelled of dust and detergent. As he moved an old stack of newspapers, he found one from the week after she died. The headline was smeared, but he could still read the date. He'd meant to throw it out, but hadn't. He glanced up toward the stairs. For a second, he thought he saw a shadow move across the top step. A soft whisper followed, almost drowned by the hum of the furnace. Mark froze. "Lisa." The air shifted, the faintest trace of that same perfume. Something clinked upstairs. A plate, maybe. Then another. The sound of dishes again. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under his weight. When he reached the kitchen, he stopped. The sink was empty, but the faucet dripped steadily, drop after drop echoing in the silence. Behind him, Noah's voice was small and trembling. "She's washing the dishes again, Daddy." Mark turned. The boy stood barefoot in the hallway, eyes fixed on the sink. "There's no one there," Mark said. His voice shook. "You see, no one." Noah didn't look at him. "She said she's sorry." The words struck him harder than he expected. "Sorry for what?" The boy's lip quivered. "For leaving us." Mark's breath caught. He knelt and held Noah's shoulders gently. "You didn't really hear her, did you? You dreamed it." But Noah just stared past him, as if listening to something Mark couldn't hear. That night, after putting his son back to bed, Mark sat in the kitchen with the lights off. He watched the reflection in the window, the faint outline of his own face. He whispered her name once, just to see what would happen. Nothing answered. He stayed there until the first light crept into the sky. When he finally turned off the faucet, he realized his hands were shaking. The next morning, the plates in the cupboard gleamed as though freshly washed. He hadn't touched them.